welcome to my home on this dark and stormy night. Today I wanted to tell you about the time that I went to the Zak Bagans Haunted Museum. Bagans, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Now, if you don't know who Zak Bagans is, first of all, how absolutely dare you? I'm totally joking. He's like basically if a dirt bike, like a bro, had a baby with one of the guys from Blink-182. I think you got a pretty good idea of who he is now. I think that's a pretty valid description. He's the host of a show called Ghost Adventures, where he and a crew essentially go out and try to figure out if a place is haunted and capture entities on their show. It's a fun show, and sometimes they do catch really creepy things if it is authentic. And he has made it kind of his mission in life to go and collect all these different haunted objects. And he has put them in one place that is called the Zak Bagans Haunted Museum. You can go there, pay X amount of dollars, and be taken on a tour through his haunted museum. It's really neat. I really enjoyed the experience, and it's funny because I went with a few friends and I was the one that wanted to go and nobody else really wanted to, and by the time we got there I was creeped out and everybody else was like, yeah! I don't know exactly where I stand on the whole ghost belief, but it's a fun show nonetheless. Okay, so let's get into it. Let me pull up the website because I'm ill-prepared. Per usual, it looks like prices are starting at $48, but I want to tell you my experience. I went back in December and I've been wanting to make a video kind of just telling you guys what it was like, because I did not know it was going to be like this, and I think that a lot of horror people would enjoy it. It's in Las Vegas, Nevada, so if you ever take a trip to Vegas, it's right off the strip, maybe 10 minutes off the strip. You just park in the parking lot and go right in. No. Okay, so basically it's a mansion. It was owned by a family who had a bit of a tragic history in the house. We heard quite a few stories from the tour guide about ominous things happening throughout the house. One man who lived there remembered being a teen or a young boy, and he remembered Satanists and worshiping demons in the basement. And when Zak bought the mansion to turn it into a museum, he did find some satanic things on, the ground in the basement. He wouldn't let anybody go in the basement. He said that it was too dangerous. And also, if you watch a show, okay, so if you go to the app, the Discovery, is it Discovery? Hold on, I have it on my phone, let me tell you. No, it's Travel. If you go to the Travel Channel app and you get it on your phone or your TV or whatever, you can stream some episodes of Ghost Adventures for free, but then they also have other shows just about the museum where they show people who bring in haunted objects that they don't want anymore, that they donate to the museum, so you get to find out a lot more information about the background items. So I suggest you check that out too if you have time and that's kind of the thing that you're into. So this is actually where you wait in line outside. As you can tell, there's also creepy things here. It doesn't start when you walk in the door, it starts when you park. But we got some skeletons and creepy items, and we also have this adorable little gargoyle here, which was my favorite part. Before we get in the rest of the video, I just wanted to show you what it's like when you first enter the museum. So this is actually before you go to inside to begin the tour. This is just where you sign your consent form, which basically says that if you die on the tour, they are not responsible. But it's a really neat room and it kind of gives you an idea of what's to come. You weren't allowed to take any photos inside the actual museum, so any photos that I use in this video other than this room here and the outside are from the actual website. And along with that room, they also have a warning sign, and this is what it says before you enter. So I wanted to talk about the specific things that they have in their rooms. So essentially, you're taken on a tour, but what I really enjoyed about it was that everybody kind of had a specific role. So you didn't have one tour guide the whole way through. For example, you would have one lady who brought you in, for us it was a lady, brought us in and kind of gave us a tour of the first room, and then you go into a second room and then a second tour guide took over. So it was like they were each experts on that area of the room. I found them really knowledgeable about the subjects. A few things I questioned, but I have no way of obviously checking their authenticity. But there were a few things that I was like, that doesn't seem right. Like, how would you get that? Not that I'm calling anybody a liar or anything, but other than that, really awesome items. And I really liked the fact that You know, if you didn't like one tour guide, which there weren't any that I didn't like, but I'm just saying if you didn't like a way that a tour guide spoke or whatever, you would be handed off to another one in each room. I don't know, it just felt different than a normal tour. Another thing I really liked about it was that it was like a haunted museum slash ghost tour slash haunted house, kind of all rolled into one, which I was not expecting. There are some points where you're walking through the museum from one room to another where people are jumping out at you. It's very fun and it lightens the mood between the rooms because sometimes it does feel a bit dark and heavy in there, and I will get into that in a minute as well. One thing I wanted to mention was one criticism I came across when Googling it, because I wanted to find out a little bit of information before I went, was that it seemed gimmicky. And yeah, but also if you have a house full of haunted objects, how do you make it interesting without it being a little gimmicky, you know? Other than walking in a room and staring at something that's supposedly haunted, what else can you do? Although some people would find it gimmicky, and although there were some things that they used to manipulate you, I think that everything worked really, really well together to kind of put you in that spooky mood. I mean, from the second you walk in, it's very dark. Okay, but I want to talk about a few things that they have there in particular. I don't want to give everything away, but it says that they have 30 different rooms, so even if I talked for 20 minutes, which I probably will, I don't think that I could give it all away. One thing is that they have actual remains of humans in there. So some skeletons are fake, but some are real. There's one funeral parlor setup in one room where you sit down and they tell you the skeleton's fake, but these are real. And you're just kind of sitting there looking, someone's skeleton, thinking about who that person was, and it just kind of sets the tone for the whole tour. It really gets your mind running. So I think the way that they set it up really just messes with you from the beginning. We also have Bela Lugosi's mirror. So Bela Lugosi was an actor who played Dracula. He was very heavily into the occult, and he had a mirror in which he would do, I think it's called scribing. Let me just Google it because I don't even know what it is. Mind you, I don't know a lot about spirituality or ghosts. I'm not a ghost hunter. Like I said before, I don't even know where I stand on the belief of ghosts, so I'm not giving you my expert opinion or anything. I'm just letting you know what the museum held. And even for someone like me who is a skeptic, who is somebody who doesn't feed too much into ghost hunting, it was a really neat experience. What was I Googling? It was passed down to a man, I'm not sure how, but he ended up being murdered in front of the mirror. Zak Bagans is a big believer in residual energy and having energy from a traumatic event absorb that experience. After that, it was handed down, and it was in the daughter's room, the older daughter, and she started having really bad nightmares and seeing somebody crawling out of the mirror, so they ended up getting rid of it, and I believe they're the ones that gave it to Zak Bagans, or he bought it from them or something. They have the mirror and you're able to walk up to it and stare into it, which is kind of just a neat relic. I really liked the historical elements of the tour as well, where yes, they are obviously related to tragic events, but you get to learn a lot about history and delve more into the history behind certain objects. They have things like Kevorkian's van. Maybe you know, maybe you don't. Kevorkian was a doctor who kind of did this assisted suicide before it was legal, and he ended up going to jail for a short period of time because of it, so a lot of people lost their lives in the van due to them being ill, and he did it as humanely as he could, but still a sad experience. They also had a lot of his art. They also have Ed Gein's cauldron. So before I go on any further, I just wanted to clarify that I don't in any way idolize serial killers. I don't think that's healthy. I think it's human nature to be curious about somebody who can do such unthinkable things, so I think, you know, educating yourself and watching documentaries and things like that is okay, but I in no way glorify a serial killer. So I just wanted to make that clear before I talk about this portion of the video, because there are a lot of artifacts related to serial killers. One thing I found very, very interesting was the artwork from the serial killers. For whatever reason, a lot of serial killers are artists, or at least the ones in that museum were. So I don't know exactly what the direct relation is between the two, but it is kind of just interesting to think about. A lot of the art was very graphic, a lot of it was very violent, a lot of it was very sexual in nature. It was just kind of interesting to see these same themes play out through the artwork of people who were connected in only one horrible way. I don't want to go into specifics, but they had specific items from different serial killers. Some things that were very difficult to look at, and some things I had to be like, okay, I think I'm done here. And then some things that were just odd to look at, you know, like the glasses Ted Bundy wore as his disguise. So by no means is this a place to go for the faint of heart. It is quite difficult to kind of keep yourself separated in that sense and not look at something so horrific and be distraught by it. But I think that's part of the whole tour. You do get to see things that are very heavy and weigh heavily on you, and then you get to have a little bit lighter aspects too. Like I said, the fun house. You also get to see this beautiful display of a circus that somebody crafted with their own hands. So there are light moments in it, but definitely not for the faint of heart. There are graphic images, videos, and items. It's a hard subject to speak on. They did have Ed Gein's cauldron. The people that went in when he was initially arrested looked inside the cauldron, and there were human remains inside of it, so that was difficult. But this is something else that I want to talk about too. That whole room, they said, I think it was the creators of what's that show called? American Horror Story helped him design the set for that. But it reminded me of like a Friday the 13th movie. It looks like an old barn, and you look up and you see, I think there's like a dummy hanging from the top. It really felt like you were kind of sucked into a Friday the 13th movie. So it's such a weird dichotomy of fiction and non-fiction kind of coming together, and that room is so beautifully decorated, and you feel like you're in the middle of a horror movie, which is fun in that aspect. But then you have these relics of Ed Gein in there where it brings the mood down and makes you somber. It's a very, very interesting, weird place to be, and it really does play a lot on your emotions, especially if you're a super emotional person like me. I get stuck in my head a lot, and so I think that's what happened a lot in there. So it's definitely not just, hey, you love horror movies, go to this museum. But I think there are elements of that in there. Along with the mirror, he has these haunted objects as well. I'm not going to put pictures up because some people are weird about pictures, and there's a lot of, I don't want to say folklore, but there's a lot of theories surrounding these specific items. A lot of people attribute bad experiences to these inanimate objects because they are believed to have spirits connected with them in some way. So I'm not going to go into super specifics, but they do have a few haunted dolls that are quite famous. In one room, they have a whole display of dolls, and you go in and they actually have a spirit box running, and they close the door behind you, and it's just the guests. There's no tour guide with you. You're able to ask questions. You're able to say whatever you want. As long as it's respectful, you're told to say hello and goodbye to that specific doll, and if you don't, supposedly bad things are to happen. There's another room that is quite uncomfortable to go into, and it's called the Devil's Rocking Chair. Now, what they said on the tour was that this, or maybe they said it in the show, I don't remember, but either way, I heard that this was where the basis of The Exorcist came from, but The Exorcist is based on a fiction book. So I don't know what's true and what's not. I haven't looked further into that. Maybe he got the idea from hearing about these people's story. I'm not sure. But regardless, there is a rocking chair, and it's called the Devil's Rocking Chair. And they open it up and you're able to look at it, and they play recordings from an exorcism that took place. Supposedly a little boy was possessed by a demon, and they used to say that the demon would sit in that rocking chair. And oh, I just got chills thinking about it. And supposedly if you sit in the chair, you're not allowed to, but people who have sat in the chair experience a lot of back pain, a lot of discomfort. Yeah, it's really unsettling to hear an exorcism taking place while you're just staring at this chair. That was a room that I felt pretty uncomfortable in. What happened allegedly in the story was the same thing that did happen in The Exorcist, where a young boy was possessed. The young boy's sister's boyfriend or something like that told the demon to get out of the young boy and go into him, and then he ended up committing a murder. Something along those lines. I don't know for 100% fact. So it would make sense if he got that story and then evolved it into The Exorcist. I don't really know. That would be a good video to make. Maybe I'll dive further into that and report back to you with that information, because that's quite creepy if that is true. Again, I don't want to give every single thing away. There were tons of rooms and a lot of things to see, and I don't want to tell you everything in case you do get the chance to go and visit for yourself. But a few things that I wanted to touch on were how they kind of manipulate you into being more fearful, which is a good thing. interesting. So one thing I will say is that not every tour guide, but a lot of tour guides, and especially in the really high anxiety rooms, will tell you before they go in. I'll tell you the information of that room, but it freaks me out. So I'm gonna let you guys in, but I'm gonna stay out here. Just that little manipulation gets you going. It freaks you out. You don't realize when you're going through it, you're just like, oh, these people are really scared of this room. I should be scared too. And then in retrospect, you're like, oh, okay, no, that's probably part of the thing. But really smart. It definitely messes with your head. Another thing they do is show you videos of people who have supposedly, I keep saying supposedly because obviously we don't know for certain, but they show security footage of people who had supposedly passed out or started screaming or seen things, and you see quite a few of those in the different rooms, and you're like, that's the room I'm standing in right now. That could be real, and people could definitely have seen things. People could have thought that they've seen things because they're just so freaked out. Or they could have staged the entire thing and just shown you actors. I mean, you really have no idea. But either way, that's such a brilliant way to introduce someone into a situation where you want to make them uncomfortable. It really is ingenious. Another thing that I want to talk about is the lighting and the scents. Every single room has a different way of being lit than the last. It kind of throws you off balance a little bit, and it takes a while to adapt to each room, and then once you are a little bit adapted, you're moved on to another room. The whole place is very dim, very dark, very old, creepy mansion-esque. It has a very gothic feel to it. Every single room had a different scent. So they were somehow pumping in scents of different things. Some things smelled very sweet, like popcorn. Nothing smelled bad or anything. They didn't have like zombie laundry in one of the rooms or anything, but they all had a different scent, and some of them did correspond with what you were in. So for example, you would smell popcorn when you were around like the circus that I was talking about earlier, that hand-painted circus. You would smell maybe the ocean or something along that like clean linen scent when we went into a room about boats. It was really cool to have all of your senses being stimulated to make you feel like you're there. I have never experienced anything like that in my life. Whoever invented this and whoever came up with the idea of incorporating scent, incorporating lighting to kind of throw people off balance, to suck them in, is a genius, regardless of how you feel about the things that he possesses. Just a really fun, interesting experience. It was a blast. It really was such a fun experience. I think as somebody who enjoys horror, I think it's a fun place to go for specific elements. So they did have like my dog is barking at the door now. I'm creeped out. Okay, she was growling at the door and now I'm really scared, and so I just locked her out of the room because I'm freaked out talking about this even. Yeah, I'm a little baby when it comes to ghosts. Oh, she really is barking. Oh my goodness, 1 second. I'm gonna say she was just barking because it started raining really heavy, but it's been raining all day and she hasn't barked all day. Freaking myself out. Anyways, but back to my kind of sum up of it is I think it's definitely worth the money if you are a horror fan and you get to see some really interesting historical items as well as some haunted items. If you're into the occult, if you're into ghosts, if you're into spirits, depending how you feel about it. If you are sensitive to items, you can definitely opt out of specific rooms, and they will tell you before what's in it. And nobody in my tour opted out of any room, but you are able to do that. So if you feel really uncomfortable just talking about or just looking at serial killer memorabilia, if you feel really uncomfortable being in a room as an item that's possessed or whatever it is, you can definitely opt out of the room. So that's a good option too, and I think that that's neat that they do that. Now she's scratching at the door and she just gave me goosebumps because she freaked me out even more. Okay, so for the very last thing, I wanted to say, no, I didn't experience anything. No, I didn't see anything. No, I didn't feel anything. No, nothing happened afterwards. I went months and months ago. I went in December. I believe it was near Christmas time. As I mentioned, I'm not a spiritual person. I'm not spiritually sensitive. I don't feel ghosts. I've never seen a ghost. I don't have ghost experiences. So I just wanted to sum this up by saying that I think that it would be fun for a wide range of people to go. And if it sounds interesting to you, then once all of this stuff is over, maybe next year, definitely give it a go and check it out. Especially if you're in Vegas. It's a few minutes off the strip. you might as well. I think that's all the information I had. Watch Ghost Adventures if you haven't seen it. I think it's a fun show, regardless of how you feel. If you think watching shows about people trying to catch ghosts is fun, if you think it's campy, either way, I think that it's just a fun show to pass the time. But I do believe that people see things and experience things, and I do believe that they experience things. Does that make sense? I feel like friends right now. Well, they don't know that we know they know we know. If you have any questions about it, let me know. I will obviously answer any question that I can. I apologize if any information that I have is incorrect, and if you have any information about anything that I had questions on or anything that I described incorrectly, please let me know that as well. Okay, I think that's it. I'm gonna go read a book about demons now, and I will catch you next time. Stay golden. Bye!